Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines, your one-stop destination for the civil services preparation, UPSC, KPSC and other relevant examinations. Today we have picked up a couple of important articles which are very significant from your UPSC and KPSC examination point of view. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article here is speaking about glacial lake burst. Where did it occur? It occurred in the state of Sikkim. So the first important parameter from the state examination point of view as well as UPSC examination point of view is we understand the geography. Where is this? This happens to be a South Lonak lake. This is one of the lake in the state of Sikkim. This is the first preliminary important point. The second is with respect to the analysis, where we understand that this happens to be a very significant topic. One, from the disaster management perspective. Second is from geography, that is paper 1 as well, where we understand where is the location, what exactly happened, what is a glacial lake, and third is from ecology and environment perspective, where we understand the climate change manifestations that is taking place in couple of places in India as well as the world over. The first important pointer is that we understood where is the South Lonak lake. This happens to be a lake where in the state of Sikkim. The second that we have to understand is what is this glacial lake. As the very name denotes, it is a lake that is present near the glaciers. So the lake that is present at the top of the glacier, at the bottom of the lake here, at the front of the glacier, on it, beyond it, in and around it is what is called as a glacial lake. So what is a glacial lake? It is just a lake which is formed at the top of the glacier, or it can be formed at the bottom of the glacier, or it can be on the glacier or in and around that particular glacier is what is called as the glacier lake. So the water that is present, whenever the melting takes place of this glacier, the water enters this depression or that particular lake. What would happen in most of the cases? In most of the cases, what you will have is a bridge in the form of a wall that is constructed in and around that particular lake, or it can also be a glacier as well. In this particular case, what you will have is the water that comes and enters into this depression. So the water is safeguarded, there will be no breach whatsoever. But imagine a situation where this wall that is present, or the glacial ice in the form of ice, you will have the ice, it is protecting this particular water from breaching it. Now what all of a sudden there is a large influx of water from the glacier, either because of the climate change or because of excessive melting of the ice in this particular locality. What would happen? There will be excessive flow of water into this lake. When there is excessive flow of water, what if this wall that is present around the lake gets breached? In that case, it results in what is called as flooding in and around that particular locality. So what is the major issue here? We have a lake which happens to be a glacial lake, and it is this lake that is present on the glacier. It can be at the bottom of the glacier or in and around that particular glacier. It is naturally protected by the glacier, or there is a walls like structure, there is a glacial melting that takes place, the water enters this depression in the form of a glacial lake. What if there is excessive glacial melting? In that case, excessive water enters this depression and the wall or that muddy area or the wall that is able to stop the water all of a sudden breaks, and this ultimately means that there is flooding that results, and people whosoever are present at the lower lying region, they all get disturbed by this. So this article here is speaking about one such lake burst that took place in the state of Sikkim, where in the South Lonak lake. So remember, this happens to be in the state of Sikkim. So what exactly happened? At least 7 people were killed and scores more injured, missing after the flash floods inundated Sikkim. The floods are believed to have been triggered after a lake forming from the gradual melting of the Himalayan glacier suddenly overflowed and inundated the Teesta river basin. This destroyed the Chungtung Dam. So Chungtung Dam is another important parameter from your preliminary examination, a key component of the state's largest hydroelectricity project, and washed away highways, villages as well as towns. The worst affected districts were Mangan, Gangtok, Pakyong, Namchi, and 22 Army personnel were among those reported missing. So the South Lohanak Lake in northern Sikkim is situated about 5,200 meters above sea level. Scientists have previously warned that this lake had been expanding over the years. How does it work? When we speak about this breach, the GLOF, or what is called as this glacial lake flooding, has three main features. One, they involve sudden and sometimes cyclic release of the water. As we just discussed, there would be a wall or a barrier. This barrier would ultimately break, and because this water that is present in the lake, there is breakage of the wall, it ultimately starts flowing excessively into the lower lying region. So there is sudden release of the water because there is breakage of the wall, or it is because of the excessive release from the glacier. They tend to be rapid events lasting hours to days. This is another feature. They result in large downstream river discharge, which often increase by an order of magnitude. Since there is a larger magnitude of release of water, all those people in the low-lying areas, they get impacted. So people have lost their lives. This happens to be one of the disastrous consequences, and then there are economic losses as well, and at the same time there are also people who have lost their near and dear ones. These are some of the major issues, and these issues can be triggered when there is an earthquake in that particular locality, or it can also be because of the landslides, or it can also be because of the avalanche as well, or it can also be because of the heavy rainfall as well. So whenever there is heavy rainfall, all these incidents can result in that particular locality. So earthquakes, avalanches, heavy rain and glacial melting have all resulted in this particular region, and this has caused significant damage to the people as well as that region. Now that what we have to understand are the steps that have been taken in the past when it comes to Sikkim in order to protect it. Yes, it did. In 2016, members of the Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority and Sikkim's Department of Science and Technology and Climate Change, among others, decided to siphon off lake water from South Lohanak Lake. The technique was implemented under the supervision of innovator Sonam Wangchuk. Authorities installed three 8-inch pipe and 130 to 140 meters low high density polyethylene pipes in the lake to take out the water. They siphoned off 150 liters of water per second. So what exactly did they do? Imagine this is the lake. So they put in huge pipes into this particular river and they suck the water out of it. So this would ultimately mean that in case there is glacier melting that takes place, this lake is able to take in more amount of water, because in the present situation the wall has breached, it was not able to take the water, and as a result what we are witnessing is flooding. But what if we are able to suck out the water using the pipe, using the motors, and ultimately provide that enough capacity for the lake to hold on to the water? That is what is being done in the past. Now the question is disaster management. When we speak about disaster management, what we have to focus is on the Disaster Management Authority as envisaged in the Disaster Management Act of 2005. The NDMA guidelines say that risk reduction has to begin with identifying and mapping such lakes, taking structural measures to prevent their sudden breach, and establishing mechanisms to save lives and property in times of a breach. First, what we have to do is conduct an aerial survey as well as space survey through the satellites. So once we conduct the survey, we would have seen from the past that so and so incident would have occurred in so and so region. For example, it has occurred in the Himalayan region. The Himalayan region, it has occurred, let's say, in the Himachal Pradesh, or it has occurred in Uttarakhand, or it has occurred in Sikkim. So when you know for the fact that it has occurred in certain regions, why not understand and map that particular location and also create a zoning map for that particular place? So what if there are past precedences, past historical issues? So what we have to do is create a map out of it and zone it. So this is a particular zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, and ultimately ensure that if a priority is given, that let's say zone 1 is one particular region where it could lead to a large scale devastation devastation, keep it as zone 1. If the priority or the gravity could be comparatively less, keep it as zone 2. And if it is the gravity even lesser than that, zone 3. So we identify that particular locality because of the past similar events that have occurred, and also because of the aerial survey, and also because the scientific community steps into this region and understands that this could cause a large scale devastation to the entire region. So once we have a zoning, we have a clear cut plan as well. So we would be going by not the reactive approach but a proactive approach. What is this reactive and proactive approach? Once a disaster occurs, measures that we take happens to be a reactive approach. So a measure has to be taken because there is a disaster that has occurred in that region. So what we are doing is reacting to that situation, but instead we should be proactive in our approach, which means even before an incident occurs, even before a disaster strikes that region, we need to have measures in pipeline, and whatever measures that have to be kept in pipeline are immediately taken into precedence if that act occurs in that region. So conduct a scientific study, conduct an aerial survey, conduct a space related survey, ensure that you already have a pre-existing plan in case an eventuality and casualty happens in that particular region. So the NDMA has clearly marked, identified such lakes, take structural measures to prevent such breach, and establish mechanism. So have all these parameters in place so that you are able to save the lives of the people and the economic activities in that particular region. So conduct field observation, record of the past events, geomorphological and geotechnical characteristics of the lake and dam the surroundings and other physical conditions. If need be, create more dams and ensure that there is that particular bridge that is built, and this will not cause any eventuality to the people who are lying in the lower sections of the society. It has also recommended that we can make use of the synthetic aperture radar imagery to automatically detect changes in the water bodies, including new lake formations during the monsoon months. It has said that methods and protocols could also be developed to allow remote monitoring of the lakes from the space. We will discuss about it. And NDMA recommends reducing the volume of water with methods such as control breaching, pumping or siphoning of water, and making a tunnel through the moraine barrier or under the ice dam. We did just discuss that Sikkim did this siphoning of water, where it is sucking off the water, making sure that excess water is taken out, so that in case the glacier melts, the excessive water comes and gets deposited in that particular depression. If we are able to do so, we would be able to reduce the impact of it. What are the other measures that one will have to take? Apart from pressing specialized forces such as NDRF, ITBP and the army, NDMA has emphasized the need for trained local manpower. What is this trained local manpower? Whenever disaster strikes, let's say for example there is an earthquake, or let's say for example there is a volcano, or for example landslides, who are the ones who first immediately come to that locality? It is the people who are present in that locality alone. So we have the past previous incidents where such issues would have occurred in that region. So you know for the fact that because of the zoning, so and so area will come under a problem. So identify such zones, and there are people in and around that particular region, educate them, give them an awareness, give them the training, because in case there is an eventuality, it is these people who immediately rush to the location and ultimately help other sections of the society. So why not train them, train the local people, because they are the ones who immediately come to that locality. Yes, we have the army, we have other forces that step into the picture. They also increase the momentum and help the people come out of this grief and pain as well. But immediately, who are the people available? Those who are located in and around that particular locality. So ensure that you are giving them the awareness and the training so that they can also pull people out of grief and pain and provide immediate assistance. It also called for a comprehensive alarm systems, besides classifying alarming infrastructure consisting of acoustic alarms by sirens. Modern communication technology using cell and smartphones can implement and even replace traditional alarming infrastructure. So in case there is such issue, immediately people should be notified in that area. So what we require is a comprehensive alarm system. It has asked for provision of heavy earth moving and search and rescue equipment, as well as motor launches, country boats, inflatable rubber boats, life jackets. Acknowledging the disaster spot in the Himalayas can at times be inaccessible to the earth movers. NDMA has recommended innovative methods using available natural resources. In fact, they've also suggested that helicopters can also be employed to move people from one location to another, because in Himalayan region sometimes because of these landslides we would not be able to control this particular region. So all these measures will have to be taken, and the MDMA has called for quick reaction medical teams, mobile field hospitals, accident relief vans and heli ambulances in areas inaccessible by roads. The guidelines also call for psychological counseling of the victims apart from dissemination of accurate information. This is primarily done because these people would be suffering from trauma, they are in a state of shock, and these people will require immediate assistance because they may have also lost their near and dear ones. So keeping them under their comfort zone is also a necessity, says this article. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Nobel Prize for Chemistry. We did discuss in the past 3 days. First, we did discuss about the Nobel Prize, what are the intentions. We did speak about the medical Nobel Prize that was awarded for mRNA vaccines. We did also speak in our yesterday physics as well, that physics was given, that is to do with autoseconds. And today what we have is Chemistry Nobel Prize, which is given for the quantum dots. So the first question is, what is the concept of quantum dots? Let's say for example we have a matter. The number of electrons in this particular matter is what defines the characteristics of that particular matter. What if the properties of any elements depends on electrons within it? Basically, whenever the matter is really tiny, so whenever you consider the matter is really tiny or it is small, very minute in nature, these are measured in nano dimensions. Its properties depends on its size. So the smaller a particle, it will have more number of electrons squeezed together, and ultimately all its properties will be defined on the basis of the size. So such particles whose size determines the behavior are called as the quantum dots. So quantum dots are man-made nanoscale crystals that exhibit unique optical and electronic properties, including the ability to transport electrons and emit light of various colors when exposed to the UV light. These artificially synthesized semiconductor nanoparticles have a wide range of potential applications, including uses in composites, solar cells, fluorescent biological labeling, displays, lighting and medical engineering. Because we've had these three people, Mongi Bawendi, Louis Bruce and Alexei Ekimov, who contributed to the concept of quantum dots, they have been given the Nobel Prize. Quantum dots constitute a new class of materials that is neither molecular nor bulk. They have the same structure and atomic composition as bulk materials, but their properties can be tuned using a single parameter, the particle size. The luminous properties of quantum dots are utilized in computer and television screens based on QLED technology, where Q stands for quantum dot. Similarly, quantum dots are used in some LED lamps to adjust cold light of the diodes. So basically, the properties of any element depends on how many electrons are present in that particular matter. However, when matter is too tiny, of nano dimensions, its properties basically depend on its size. So the smaller a particle, the more its electrons are squeezed together, and ultimately that affects its properties. Such properties whose size determines the behavior are called as the quantum dots. Now if you look into this image, this will give you a clear picture about the quantum dots. Quantum effects arise when particles shrink. So when particles are just a few nanometers in diameter, the space available to the electron shrinks. This affects the particle's optimum properties. So this is an electron. If the electron size is more, it will have more wealth as shown in the image. But if the electron or the matter is small, then it has very less time. It also has very less space. So electron has very less space. Large nanoparticles have more space for the electron wave. Smaller nanoparticles have less space for the electron wave. And quantum dots absorb light and then emit it in the another wavelength. Its color depends on the size of the particle. How Mongi Bawendi produced quantum dots? Bawendi injected substances that can form cadmium selenide into hot solvent. The volume was enough to saturate the solvent around the needle. Then small crystals of cadmium selenide immediately formed, but because the injection cooled the solvent, crystals stopped forming. When Bawadi increased the temperature of the solvent, the crystals once again started to grow. The longer this continued, the larger the crystals became. So he was able to bring this particular change. They won't ask you this entire process, but for the sake of understanding, imagine this image and also look at the process of it. But what they will ask you for sure is who are the people who discovered, what is this quantum dot. Such questions will be asked in your preliminary examination. Now let's look into the next article. This article says retribution for the south, accolade for the north. The article here is speaking about delimitation. The article here is speaking about population census. The article here is speaking about how the southern states of India have brought population under check, and as a result, when we have the 2026 open up, what we will have is more number of seats which will be reserved for the north. This could be a problematic concern for the south. And what are the other concerns? For example, we have the finance commission that is appointed. How exactly on the basis of the population it goes about giving money to the center and the state. So it is the central government which is it is the state governments which will have the major problems once we have the population census and delimitation defined in 2026. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. We have Article 81 of the Indian Constitution, which stipulates that Lok Sabha constituencies in the country should be equal by the size of the population. Based on the 1971 census, the number of Lok Sabha constituencies for states was determined and frozen for the next 25 years through the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. In 2001, through the 84th Amendment Act, the freeze on the number of constituencies for each state was further prolonged until the first census after 2026. What do we mean by it? We have, for example, every state which will have a Lok Sabha constituency. Let's say, for example, we have in the state of Karnataka around 28 seats, or for example, let's say any other state, hypothetical numbers. Let's say we have in the state of West Bengal about 42 seats, or in the state of Telangana we have about 17 districts. So these are the Lok Sabha constituencies. These are the present numbers where you have the delimitation or a boundary that is marked on the basis of the 1971 census, and this is marked on the basis of the population of the 1971 census, where you would say that a boundary would be drawn on the basis of the population that was examined in 1971. But in 2026, what we will have is a new delimitation, which means the population has increased, so we will have new numbers. So if the population has changed, it also means we will have new population numbers, and that is when new delimitation and boundaries will be drawn, and this means more number of seats will go to the northern parts of India, less number of seats will come to the southern part of India. So southern parts of India will suffer politically as well as economically, says this article. Between 1971 and 2011, the proportion of the population of Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh increased from 44% to 48.2%. whereas the proportion of population in 5 southern states, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Telangana, declined from 24.9% to 21.1%. If equal size of the Lok Sabha constituencies by population is enforced today, as in the population projections of 2023, the 5 southern states will lose 23 seats, while the northern states will gain 37 seats. This basically means on the democratic front, on the delimitation front, on the basis of population front, if these numbers are implemented as per the population, it is North India which is bound to increase its political representation, and it is southern part of India which is bound to decrease its numbers, and ultimately there will be a uttermost issues when it comes to the population and representation of the southern part of India in the parliament. What are the major issues? Let's say, for example, in the near future, what could happen? Let's say Lok Sabha, we have the state of Uttar Pradesh. How many seats are there? Let's say 80 seats. Out of 80 or 82 seats that are existing for Lok Sabha in Uttar Pradesh, what if its numbers increase to about 85 seats? And let's take another state, let's say Madhya Pradesh, or for example Rajasthan. What if its numbers increase to from the existing about 3 to 4 seats gets increased in the northern part. So these politicians in the democratic framework will start focusing only on the northern states for its electoral success and will not start looking at the southern states, and as a result it is the southern states which will not have the political representation. Their voice will not be heard in the parliament, and as a result southern part of India may suffer if population census in 2026 comes into implementation. So this means that on one side what the center has been, at one side what the states have been able to do, especially the southern part of India, is they were able to plan for the future. They had their own regional renaissance that took place, reformation that took place. You had political outfits that took over the parts of southern parts of India. They were able to bring new change, and they were able to introduce education, awareness, and also have political check as well, that is population check as well. When they have the population check, what they have been able to do is reap the benefits of development. But this is not the same when it comes to the northern part of India. The population is still not under check. They are also growing exponentially as well, while southern states have been able to stabilize the population because of the awareness and education and the developmental programs. The same is not implemented in the northern part of India, and as a result now if the population is increased, political representation increases, what you will have is a disincentive. So states like southern parts of India have already created this so-called population check, but that has not happened in the northern part of India. Now they will be disincentivized. They will not be incentivized to continue with such population control programs, while northern Indian population will have more political representation. All of it is primarily taking place because of the one person one vote. So when we speak about one person one vote, this is the practice that is present, where we have the first past the post system. So this first past the post system basically means that one single person would be able to change the fortunes of that particular constituency. Even if one person is getting the majority, even by one vote, that person goes on to win. Is there a particular picture that we have to say that 100% of the people will have to come and vote? No. Even if about 5% of the people come and vote in the elections, let's say there are about 1000 votes in that particular constituency. Out of 1000 votes in that particular constituency, let's say only 50 people come and vote in that particular locality, and out of this 50, let's say only 31 people vote in favor of one person. The other section of the people, the other 19 people may not vote in favor of another person. So this 31, even if the representation is low, this person goes on to win the elections. Similarly, import this concept to the larger state. So if Uttar Pradesh has about 80, or let's say Rajasthan has more number of seats, or any other state for that matter in the northern part have more seats, they will get the political success and there will be decline or no representation for the southern part because of their population control mechanism. So there is disincentive. Southern part of India and these states have ensured that there is family planning program and population control, and now they are being disincentivized. So this will ultimately lead to role of population in the fiscal transfers. So whenever we speak about population, whenever we speak about how finances are shared between the state and the center, we have to go back to finance commission. So you have this center which will appoint the finance commission. The finance commission under article 280 of the Indian constitution, what will it do? They will be given a certain parameters and an objectives on the basis of which they will be able to define what will be the horizontal distribution and what will be the vertical distribution. What is this horizontal distribution and vertical distribution? The vertical distribution is between the central government as well as the state government. What is the horizontal distribution? It is between all states for that matter. Let's say we have the finance commission that is appointed. Out of 100% reserves or the fund that it has reserved, let's say they have about 1000 crores in the kitty. Hypothetical numbers. Out of this 1000 crores, what percentage of money should go to the central government? Let's say it says 600 crores should go to the central government, and then it says another 400 crores will have to go to the state governments. So this is what is called as vertical categorization. So it says out of so and so amount, out of a certain percentage of it, certain percentage will go go to the central government, that is 50% will go to the central government and another 40% or 45% will go to the state governments. So this differentiation is what is called as the vertical distribution. And what is horizontal distribution? Out of this 400 crores that exist for the state governments, what percentage will go to the state of Maharashtra, what percentage will go to the state of Uttar Pradesh, what percentage will go to the state of Karnataka. For all these states, out of 400 crores that exist for the state, out of 400, 100 crores will go to Uttar Pradesh, 50 crores will go to Maharashtra. How is this differentiation happening? That will be defined by the government to the Finance Commission, and ultimately the Finance Commission makes a recommendation as well. So when you consider the previous instances, the Union government in its statement of reference to the 8th Finance Commission stipulated to use only 1971 population instead of 1981 population. This practice continued till 13th Finance Commission, and then in terms of the reference for the 14th Finance Commission, the Union government stipulated that apart from taking 1971 population, the Commission may also consider demographic changes since 1971 where the population is to be used. And now look at what happens between 14th and the 15th Finance Commission. Population of 1971 was not considered in the 2021-26 and this was considered in the 14th Finance Commission. Population of 2011, that was 10% is given in 14th Finance Commission, but 15% was given in the 15th Finance Commission. So what we have is more population, more will be the finances to the states. So at the same time, the southern Indian states, because they have less population, because they have family control programs, because they have less population in comparison to the northern part of India, they will be receiving less finances from the Finance Commission. And this is the recommendation that will be accepted by the central government. And who is bound to suffer? It is the southern Indian state. Added to it, the higher the per capita income of a state, the lower its share in the union tax revenue. Lower per capita income of a state may be due to higher population for a given gross state domestic product. Therefore, the higher the current population of a state, higher would be its share in the union tax revenue. So more the population, more will be the funding that will be provided by the central government to the state government. So here what we will have is more sufferings for the southern part of India. So the combined share of 5 southern states in the union government's tax revenue from 2000 to 2005 to 2021 to 26 declined from 21.1% to 15.8%. On the contrary, for the northern Indian states, it increased from 51.5% to 53.2%. So the South Indian states will suffer both on the political front and on the economic front, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says, emergency era. The arrest and actions in NewsClick case are aimed at a chilling effect. What is this article all about? Recently, founder of NewsClick, one of the websites which is into current affairs, giving news to the people, was arrested. Why was he arrested? That is because there was an article written by one of the newspapers in United States of America that this NewsClick as a newspaper and as a website was getting funding from the Chinese and they were influencing a certain outcome in India. And immediately after that, investigation was done. Delhi police also claimed that NewsClick allegedly received 38 crores from entities which alleged links to China, and the funds were used to influence pro-China content on the website. The police sources added that 29 crore was allegedly received as fees for export services, while 9 crore was received as FDI through inflating share prices. So the minute they got that information, they wanted to investigate. So prima facie, they had some information and ultimately they arrested this person. There are two ways of looking at it. What you as a civil service aspirant will have to do is look at it from both the aspects. One is from the aspect of, yes, this person, whosoever is right, is arrested. Yes, the government of India has done it right and they have enough evidence for the same. Another way of looking at it is that this entire arrest process that has been done is wrong because this is ultimately a violation against the press freedom. First, let us look at arguments which says that whatever government of India has done is right, because the Hindu only covers the negative side of it, but we also have to focus on the positive side of it. if this person who is from NewsClick happens to be one of the persons who has received money from the Chinese agent, why not arrest him? If he is influencing a certain outcome in the country, why not arrest him? And if it is another person or a group of people who are arrested, why not arrest them? Because they are going against the sovereignty of the country, influencing the country, which could be detrimental for the country. So when it is detrimental for the entire country, the government of India has every right to arrest such people, investigate about it, and ultimately understand the larger nexus behind it. So the government of India is right in arresting such people because it is able to get the information. And at the same time, what this article also says is that as of now, this person who was arrested was not given the FIR. So the first information report will basically have information as to why this person was arrested. This information was not given. When this information is not given, how will this person approach the court? Why is it that he is being charged of? If it does not know, this is ultimately the violation of the constitutional principles. Since he happens to be a journalist, he may have also written articles about the government in the past. So if he is arrested, similar such incidents may happen in the near future. This could create more chilling effect, and ultimately people will start speaking about the truth. People will stop speaking what is the reality, and ultimately the freedom of speech and expression will also come under the hammer. So this article primarily goes on to say that in the past they have such similar instances that have taken place where journalists have been appointed. These journalists have been taken and thrown behind bars. This ultimately violates the press freedom and the freedom of speech and expression. But at the same time, do note, when there are credible evidences, they cannot also give out the information. And what if this information is destroyed, sabotaged, and completely cleared? In order to avoid it, maybe the Delhi police is also keeping up to this information so that it can ultimately be given to the court in the sealed cover. What is the sealed cover doctrine? The sealed cover doctrine is basically the information that the executive gives to the judiciary, and this happens to be a secret information where only the judiciary would be able to open up that envelope, read about it, and ultimately decide on that case. So it will be a sealed cover. It is also called as a sealed cover doctrine because the envelope will have the information as to why this person or why this event took place, and since it happens to be a very private information, secret information, this has to be given only to the judiciary. So the judiciary will go through these documents and ultimately give out the recommendation or pass an order. Now let's look into the next article. This article says women's quota panchayats to parliament. So in 1992 we had the 73rd and the 74th constitutional amendment. What we had was women who were given about 1/3 representation, and immediately after that powers were given to the state governments to also provide reservation to the OBCs. Many states have also provided reservations to the OBCs as well. So this article currently goes on to say that there are pros, there are cons with respect to the reservation for the women, but whatever decision that was supposed to have been inculcated, whatever practices that you would have wanted to be put forth, you should have gone ahead with the discussions. You could have taken the primary stakeholders and ultimately decided what this policy is all about. So instead of directly and haphazardly coming up and releasing this particular bill and now becoming a part of a major constitutional amendment, there should have been more stakeholder approach where people should have inquired, and this is what is called as pre-legislative process. So this article currently goes on to say that more pre-legislative process should be taken up when such changes should be brought about, says this article. So this article here goes on to say that the reservation has been able to create positive impact, which says that there have been changes that have been introduced, and there are also papers and publications which say no, such changes have not been introduced. So for which what we would have required is a larger nexus and an understanding and a multi-stakeholder approach, says this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about one of the puppet shows called as Wayang Kilt. This happens to be a shadow puppet show. This is important from the preliminary examination point of view. Wayang Kilt is a traditional form of puppet show play originally found in the cultures of Java and Bali in Indonesia. The term wayang in the Javanese word means shadow or imagination. Its equivalent in Indonesia is bayang. Quilt means skin or leather, the material from which the figures are carved out of. In a weighing quilt performance, the puppet figures are rare projected on a taut line, screen with a coconut oil or electric light. UNESCO has designated weighing the flat leather shadow puppet, the flat wooden puppet, and the three-dimensional wooden puppet theatre as a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of the humanity. So this happens to be important from your culture GS paper 1. So weighing kilt happens to be a shadow puppet show. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about what is called as the Mewar painting. Why? Because this article speaks and has a reference to the Mewari miniature style. The Mewar painting, one of the most important schools of Indian miniature painting of the 17th and the 18th century. It is a school in the Rajasthani style and was developed in the Hindu principality of Mewar. Where is it? In the Rajasthan state. The works of the school are characterized by simple, bright color and direct emotional appeal, and the earliest dated examples come from Ragamala series painted in 1605 at Chavand, an early capital of the state. The expressive and vigorous style continued with some variations through 1680, after which Mughal influence came and it became more apparent, and one of the outstanding painters of the early phase happens to be artist Sahibuddin. These are some of the important pointers with respect to the miniature paintings. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about corruption charges, where in the CBFC, which happens to be the Central Board of Film Certification, we have one of the heroes or the actors from the Tamil industry who happens to be Vishal. Vishal recently came out with an issue and he said that people have been asking him for the bribe. So there is an involvement of corruption in the Central Board of Film Certification, where if the film has to be authenticated, if the film has to be given the license to be played in the theaters or on the online platform, they require to be paid a certain amount of bribe. So he went on to say that this increases the corruption and ultimately this has to be kept under check. So we now have the Central Board of Film Certification which has answered his query, and it has said these are the people who were not from the film certification, but they were the people from the third party, but whatever suggestion has been given will be taken as feedback, and we will ensure that such corruption issues does not occur in the near future. So this can become fodder for your UPSC mains answer writing when it comes to GS paper 2 governance. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about green shipping. What is green shipping? Green shipping is when people or goods are transported through ships using minimum resources and energy as possible to protect the environment from pollutants generated by the ship. So making sure that we do not have much of the pollution that are polluting agents that are released from the shipment is what is called as green shipping. So this particularly gives how green shipping can be enforced, solar soil system, and then you have the rig soil system, then you have the kite soil system, so on and so forth. So these green shipping plan to position maritime sector as eco-friendly. So if these measures can be incorporated, ultimately pollution can be kept under check. Apart from the green shipping, we have other modes as well. Let's say for example, we have something called as the green port. Then what we have to do is waste management techniques, and we have to incorporate carbon zero as well. So apart from the green ships, port developmental projects should also be eco-friendly. So we have to minimize the carbon footprint, pollution, conserve natural resources, and strive for zero energy wastage. Most parts go green by identifying recycling possibilities. So we have to recycle and reuse and put a solid waste segregation plan. And carbon zero, which happens to be the green vision of ports, has prompted the implementation of carbon reduction programs that includes monitoring of gas, electricity, and water usage in ports. So energy saving systems like smart lighting systems are also practiced in certain port projects. These measures will have to be taken. This is important from your GS3 perspective, environment and ecology. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. So this is it from today. This is for today. In case you are liking these initiatives, please do like, subscribe to our YouTube channel and share it with your fellow aspirants as well. Thank you for watching. All the best.